Urbanization and deurbanization. Urbanization is the process by which cities develop due to various reasons. In this process, a sizable population migrates and settles down in cities. Deurbanization is just the opposite of urbanization. It happens when cities no longer remain a good option for trade, commerce, social, cultural, and political activities. As a result, people are forced to leave cities and migrate back to villages. Deurbanization in colonial India. During the Mughal period, cities were established in the Indian subcontinent around important trading centers, ports, political and religious centers. With the change in the dynamics of power in the 18th and 19th centuries, many of the older cities began to decline. The reasons for this were varied. Decline of old administrative centers. The centers under the governors and chiefs previously lost their importance due to withdrawal of royal patronage. With the defeat of Nawab Siraj-ud-Dawla of Bengal in the Battle of Plassey, for example, his capital Murshidabad, which had been an important urban center till that time, lost its charm. Thereafter, the EEIC's new capital Calcutta became more important. With the change of political power, the old urban centers were deserted and new centers took their place. Emergence of new trading centers. The best example of this was the city of Surat. You would remember that in the 17th century, it was the most important center of overseas trade in the Mughal Empire. However, with the establishment of Bombay as the main port, Surat lost its importance in the 19th century. Similarly, Machilipatnam or Masulipatnam was a thriving port in the 17th century. However, its importance gradually declined as more and more overseas trade shifted to the new port towns of Chennai, Bombay and Calcutta. Decline of industries and handicrafts. We have seen that colonial rule led to the decline of many traditional industries such as textiles. Many older towns which earlier thrived on such industries declined. One of the best examples is the city of Dhaka. Establishment of new modes of transport. By the late 19th century, the building of railways led to the decline in the importance of many of the older towns in two ways. A. The railways changed the older trade routes, sometimes bypassing the old cities. B. Railways were meant to connect colonial cities with each other, facilitate movement of troops, and carry goods meant for export to ports. As a result, many old towns lost their importance. Foundation of new cities. While some of the older towns declined, the British also established new towns in the 18th and 19th centuries. Two categories of towns are important to remember. A. Presidency towns and B. Cantonment towns. Presidency towns. The presidency towns emerged in the 19th century out of the three old factory towns that the East India Company had set up in Madras, Bombay and Calcutta. In the 19th century, in addition to being the chief ports, these centers became administrative capitals of three of the most important provinces and developed as large administrative and business centers. Bombay, now Mumbai. The British first of all established their factory at Surat in 1612, following the Farman of 1609 to control their trade on the west coast of India. Since the Marathas were a great threat to the British at Surat, the British established another centre at Bombay, where they found themselves away from the Maratha and Portuguese interference. Bombay soon gained more prominence than Surat as the headquarters of the EEIC on the west coast. The British declared Bombay a presidency and appointed governors. Its strategic location on the seashore soon helped it to become a naval base of the British. Madras, now Chennai. The British landed at Machilipatnam in 1611 and 2 years later were permitted to build a fortified factory there. However, because of opposition from the Dutch, they shifted their centre of activity to Madras. Madras became an advantageous place for trade with the Indonesian islands known for spices. Madras was raised to the rank of presidency in 1658 and all the factories in Bengal and the Coromandel coast were subordinated to it. Then governor after governor was appointed, under whose supervision and control Madras continued to flourish till 1746. During the First Carnatic War, 1744-48, between the British and the French, it was captured by the French but was ultimately returned to the British in 1748. Due to the success of the British in the Carnatic Wars, Madras gained much in importance and prosperity. Calcutta, now Kolkata. In 1698, the English East India Company acquired the zamindari of 3 villages, Govindapur, Sultanati and Kalikata. Soon a factory was established there and the whole area was fortified. It was called Fort William. With the defeat of the Nawabs of Bengal in the Battle of Plassey in 1757 and the Battle of Buxar in 1764, the British became all-powerful in Bengal. The importance of Calcutta increased greatly by the Regulatory Act of 1773. The Governor of Bengal was made the Governor-General of India, and both the presidencies of Madras and Bombay were put under his control. Thus, Bengal gained more importance and Calcutta remained the capital of British India till 1911. Cantonment towns. These were towns which were established sometimes in and around old existing towns, specifically to station East India Company troops. Initially, they were expected to be temporary arrangements, but many of them grew into large towns and became permanent establishment for troops, and subsequently civilian towns developed around the cantonments. Most of the cantonment towns that you see today were established during the colonial period. In the chapter on revolt of 1857, you have seen how sepoys rose up in revolt in Meerut. It was and is still an important cantonment town. Bangalore too started off as a cantonment of the company's army. After the famous Battle of Seringapatnam, the company's troops were stationed here in 1809. The residency too was shifted to Bangalore from Mysore and a civil station was established. Subsequently, many Europeans settled down in Bangalore due to its pleasant climate. In addition to the presidency and cantonment towns, the establishment of the district as the administrative unit gave birth to many new towns which served as district headquarters. These served as the seat of the collector or the district magistrate or other government officials. Besides a number of hill stations like Shimla, Dehradun, Mussoorie, Dalhousie, Nainital, Darjeeling, Ooty, etc., also became extremely popular during this period. Shimla, now the capital of Himachal Pradesh, served as the summer capital of the British India till independence. From Mughal Delhi to colonial New Delhi, transformation of an urban centre. During the early medieval period, Delhi gained prominence as a major seat of power during the reigns of the Tomar and Chauhan Rajput dynasties. Subsequently, as you have read in class 7, 5 dynasties of the Sultanate period developed it into the most important city in the Indian subcontinent. In 1639, the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan built a city here which was named Shah Jahanabad. It consisted of a fort and palace complex and the city adjoining it. Its other major landmarks were the Chandni Chowk and Jama Masjid, the largest mosque in India. Chandni Chowk had streets broad enough for royal processions to pass through. The Lal Killa or Red Fort, made of red sandstone, contained the palace complex. To its west lay the walled city with 14 gates. Colonial Delhi. Shah Jahanabad was a large and thriving city before the British conquered it in 1803. The British lived here alongside the wealthier natives in the walled city till 1857. They learned to enjoy Urdu and Persian culture and poetry and participated in local festivals. The emperor promptly granted Dara Shikoh's library near Kashmiri Gate to the British, where the British residency came up. But all this changed after the revolt of 1857. First of all, Bahadur Shah II was exiled to Rangoon. His court was dismantled and several of his palaces were razed to the ground. They cleared the area around the Red Fort for security reasons and built barracks inside the fort for their troops. In 1870s, the western walls of Shahjahanabad were broken to establish railway lines and allow the city to expand beyond its previous walls. The British Magazine, a munition storehouse, the Telegraph Memorial, the Viceregal Lodge, the Viceroy lived here till 1931. The Circuit House, official guest house for British officers. The Coronation Darbar Memorial were some of the buildings erected before administrative offices shifted to Delhi, the new capital, in 1932. The British government also experimented in 1888 with a scheme for the extension of walled cities as they were very congested. The Lahore Gate Improvement Scheme was planned by Robert Clark, as the name suggests, in Lahore. The main idea of the scheme was to draw residents away from the old city to a new type of market square with shops all around. But somehow this development remained incomplete and failed in its effort to decongest the old walled city. In 1936, the Delhi Improvement Trust was set up and it built areas like Daryaganj South for rich people. It was also an attempt to draw people away from the congested city of Old Delhi. In the old city of Shahjahanabad, there was an excellent system of water supply and drainage. But it was neglected during the 19th century. The system of step walls, bawlis, also broke down and the channels to remove household waste were damaged. The broken down canals could not serve the needs of the increasing population. Thus, these had to be closed down at the end of the 19th century and a new system of open surface drains was introduced. This system too was soon overburdened and many wealthier inhabitants complained, but no action was taken. Shifting the capital. In 1911, when King George V was crowned in England, a darbar was held in Delhi to celebrate the occasion. At this darbar, the British announced their decision to shift the capital of India from Calcutta to Delhi. Why did the British do so? Right after suppressing the revolt of 1857, the British had realized the symbolic importance of Delhi. They wanted the people of Delhi to forget the Mughal emperor, whom they still saw as their leader. This was why, after the revolt of 1857, many spectacular events like the Darbar, which Viceroy Lytton organized to acknowledge Queen Victoria as the Empress of India, was held at Delhi. In 1932, New Delhi, which was planned and built by two architects, Sir Edwin Lutyens and Herbert Baker, was inaugurated as the capital of British India. New Delhi was constructed as a 10-square-mile city on Raisina Hills. The two great architects who designed New Delhi had different but complementary visions. Lutyens sought to borrow from the architectural designs of different countries, and Baker wanted to integrate local elements in his designs. But the new buildings had to assert British importance. That is why the architects made sure that the Viceroy's palace was higher than Shah Jahan's Jama Masjid. The construction of the city was interrupted by the First World War 1914-18. The city was finally inaugurated in 1932.